Hello, everybody. My name is Mark Hoover. Welcome to Breaking Through African Americans in Development. It's been an unprecedented year for many of us, from social injustices to a worldwide pandemic. College athletics is going through some changes that are necessary for a brighter day. Well, for some of us. I say that because since 2019, according to the NCAA demographics database, African Americans represented 29% of all development positions across all divisions and subdivisions. To break that down a little bit further, between 2018 to 2019, white males in development positions grew from 906 to 935. During that same time frame, white females rose from 494 to 515. In that same comparison, African Americans grew from 92 to 114, and African-American females increased from 37 to 43. To keep your math up to date, African-Americans represented 27 new positions during that time frame, while white professionals' opportunities grew to 50 at that same rate. You still don't see a problem. I do. But tonight, this platform isn't where we highlight these negative numbers, but it's a time where you can learn from these amazing Black leaders who have overcome obstacles and made an impact. At Breaking Through, we want to educate and grow others in this industry. With that being said, I'm a development officer at UNC Charlotte. Welcome to Breaking Through African Americans in Development.
Welcome, everybody. I am Mark's co-host for the evening. My name is Alvin Franklin, and I am Director of Development for Major Gifts here at Purdue University. Have stops along the way at Mississippi State, UAB, and University of South Alabama. Just want to thank everybody for being here, and also thank our talented panel, and look forward to engaging with a wonderful conversation with all of you.
Thanks, Alvin. So let's introduce you to our panel this evening.
First up from Ball State, Haven Fields. Haven was appointed as Deputy Athletic Director at Ball State in July of 2019. Fields oversees external operations, sports medicine, strength and conditioning, and assists in supervising the Cardinals' 19 teams and 400 plus student athletes. Fields spent the previous 6 years working at the University of Illinois. He quickly rose through the ranks from Associate Director of Development to Associate Athletic Director of Development in 2018. Fields has experience from the University of South Alabama and his alma mater, Auburn University, working with Tigers Unlimited.
From FAMU, the new FAMU, Keith McCluney. Keith McCluney became the Deputy Director of Athletics Chief of Staff at Florida A&M University in July 2020. A native of Shelby, North Carolina, McCluney comes from Florida A&M after serving as an Executive Senior Associate AD, External and Interim Director of Athletics at the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff. Prior to joining the Golden Lions, McCluney served as Associate Athletic Director for Development at Florida Atlantic University, 3 years of leading the Blue Raider Athletic Association at Middle Tennessee State University. And McCluney also spent 4 years at Wake Forest, where he served as Director of Regional Development for the Deacon Club.
Next up, from the University of Texas, Al Tomlinson. Al joined the Longhorn Foundation in October of 2015. His responsibilities include managing frontline fundraisers, assisting with campaign strategy, and advancing fundraising efforts through capital gifts and endowments. Tomlinson joined the Longhorns after spending 5 years at the University of Dayton, where he served as the Assistant Director of Development and Licensing Coordinator.
From UNLV, Duruante Cutts. Since 2019, Duruante serves as the Senior Director of Development at UNLV. In that role, his main focus is to enhance student-athlete experience through philanthropic development. His extensive background most recently saw him as Assistant Athletic Director, Corporate Partnership and Development at Jacksonville University, which he started in July 2017. Prior to that, he was in Tallahassee, Florida, where he first served the first 2 years as an account executive with service and retention before moving over to the Seminole Booster Club as an account executive with premium sales and services.
Next up from Michigan State is Epiphany Clark. Epiphany, who joined the Spartan Club in February 2017, was promoted to Associate Director of Development for Major Gifts in 2018, and now to Director of Donor Engagement. where she oversees the stewardship, events, and operation teams. Clark focuses on engaging donors by helping facilitate unique connections that directly support and empower nearly 800 Michigan State student athletes. Prior to Michigan State, Clark has had stops at Baylor University, the Georgia Bulldog Club, and Central Washington University.
From the 704, UNC Charlotte, Michael Garrett. Michael rejoined the 49er staff at the end of 2012 and as an assistant director of athletics fund. In this position, he is responsible for creating and developing relationships with current and prospective donors through various events and means such as social media. He also sells football and seat licenses and secures donations from individuals and businesses. Additionally, he coordinates student-athlete alumni reunions and also assists with coordinating various events like the Great Gold Rush Auction, the 49er golf outing. Garrett previously worked at Charlotte as a ticket office representative from 2005 to 2009. Garrett brings other sales experience from him with the Charlotte Bobcats in 2004 and 2005 as an inside sales account executive and as a graduate intern with the University of Kentucky with the athletic ticket office. Awesome. So the process for this evening is pretty simple. We have 3 rounds of questioning followed by a closing statement from our panel. With that being said, Alvin.
Leading off is Haven Fields. Haven, how you doing tonight, man?
Doing fantastic. How are you, Alvin?
Man, I'm doing good, my man, doing good. According to the NCAA in 2019, all 162 African-American males represented all development positions in college athletics. In this industry, how do we grow that number?
Yeah, but before I answer that question, I just want to thank Mark for his vision, for breaking through this opportunity to allow me to join these fantastic leaders in the industry. Very humble. I want to also thank you, Alvin, for joining us as a moderator. So let's get right into it. I think that number is extremely interesting when you start to think about males within our industry. I think I was having a conversation with Mark a couple of days ago, a year ago when I was visiting with my boss at the time at Illinois, Howard Milton. We were talking about the Power Five, and we were talking about leadership within the Power Five. Chief development officers, this was just a year ago, there were only 5. That represented, so they would have been in that 162, I would assume, African, because there was 4 African Americans and 1 woman, and right now there's only 4 because one of them took the job as the athletic director over at Western Carolina. So clearly there is an issue. There's some work that needs to be done. We have to be really comfortable having uncomfortable conversations with leaders if we want to really get to the root of the issue of why we're not in more leadership roles, while we're not having an opportunity to do more. You know, a lot of us have migrated towards coaching, academics, you see it regularly, but we're not being groomed for these kinds of roles. Everyone on this panel has risen. They have had the chance to gain a lot of experience, and it's going to be our job moving forward to make sure that we continue to bring along the next generation of those that clearly have an opportunity, that are talented, that we see that are rising stars. It's so funny sometimes when, you know, I've been out and about traveling, and I've got people assuming or asking me, hey, who are you here recruiting? What team do you coach? It's an automatic assumption that there's no way that we could be in these roles. To continue to change that narrative. When our student athletes start to inquire about working in college athletics, and I know there's some other questions tied to this, but it starts long before an internship process. It starts when they get there, to really explain to them what we're doing in college athletics overall, because most of them don't know until they get to the back end and they start asking more questions. So it's not just about the internships. It'll obviously be a lot more extensive than that. We gotta understand that, you know, when we get these opportunities, when other young people get these opportunities, leaders, we can't be checking boxes. We've got to give people real opportunities because they're qualified and they know how to interact with the donor base, no matter what that group might look like, no matter what the logistics are as far as where the school's located. We have to really be in tune and intentional about these opportunities. And then obviously just being genuinely interested in developing talent in our industry. Clearly we've got it. There's a lot of work to be done, But again, I just point to the fact that we've got to be really comfortable having uncomfortable conversations and moving towards a breakthrough, making sure that we're honest in our thoughts as leaders of impacting these young people of color and giving them a chance to join the ranks of the development entity.
Awesome. Keith, today I think you have so many conversations, and internal conversations seem to be very, very difficult. But how do you handle internal conversations with colleagues around understanding race, student-athlete protests now, and other social injustice issues as well?
We were talking a little bit about this before we went live, but you know, we really at FAMU, we aren't having to have those hard conversations. Our student athletes we are helping our student athletes understand that they have a voice. We are encouraging them to you know, protest and be involved socially and be engaged. But you know, I mentioned to someone the other day, I can't picture myself being anywhere else right now other than being at an HBCU. And I'm really glad that I have an opportunity to pull from experiences that I've had at other places and bring the knowledge and the ability to adjust and adapt and overcome. And that's what we explain to our student athletes. It's all about, you know, it's all about AIO, you know, adapt, adjust, and overcome, or IAO. And so I think helping people understand race, and it's a conversation like Haven said, we have to be comfortable having uncomfortable conversations. But here at FAMU, it really hasn't been an uncomfortable conversation. It's been, what can we do? What more can we do to put our student athletes in a position where their voices are heard?
Next question for you, Al. What do you think is the biggest challenge facing African-American leaders in college athletics today?
Yeah, I again want to echo Haven's sentiments. Just thank you guys for providing this opportunity and allowing us to share on this platform and in this discussion. You know, I know I'm smart enough to know I'm not going to be able to answer this, you know, better than anybody else. But I'll say one of the things that our Black leaders are faced with today is finding a way to enact change and influence progress without disrupting the system and the environments that they lead in, that you lose the peers that can help you get there, you know, and certainly do it in a way that is at a pace that we have to see it. Because people are, I read something a couple of weeks ago that the love language for Black people in general right now is action. We want to see change. We want it to happen today. And so there's got to be an urgency to it. There's got to be something that's noticeable and tangible. But the peers of our leaders, they don't always look like us. A lot of that room doesn't look like us, and the experiences are different. So I believe it's necessary that we are diplomatic, or that we are able to massage the conversation enough so that we can get their influence and input to influence those changes that we want to see as soon as possible, but without losing them on the way to get there. I kind of think of it as like the boiling the frog example, right? So you don't want the water to be hot, so hot that the frog jumps out, but you got to turn up the heat slowly and fast enough that the job gets done. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges, is finding the best way to do that without losing the peers that can help you do it as fast as possible.
Thank you so much, Al. Duruante, I think we talked a lot about diversity, you know, in our time together. But what you describe your understanding of diversity and what is missing from the cultural term, in your opinion?
First, Mark, thank you, and Al again, just echoing Hayden's and Al's sentiments about hosting this platform. And to speak specifically on the question here, I think what was missing, and a lot of institutions have been adding, is the inclusion piece, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of us look at diversity and say, all right, I need to have somebody that doesn't necessarily look like me. So if it's a Black man, all right, cool, I need to have a woman, or whatever that may be. And a lot of times we'll get to our higher ups and get to these ADs across the nation. And, you know, diversity is one thing. And it's one thing to hire people and say, well, hey, you know, I want to have a diverse population. Yet you're hiring a female, your female AD, you're hiring females because that gives them the opportunity to continue growing in the industry. Heck, even Black people can be, one way when it looks at this, when you say, hey, I'm a Black AD, I'm going to make sure I'm going to give Black people the opportunity to join this cabinet to advance. And while that is not a bad thing, I think it loses the true meaning of what diversity and inclusion is. I think, again, when you look at your quote unquote board of directors, you don't want to be surrounded with a room full of people that look exactly like you, that think like you, that have backgrounds similar to yours. It makes growth stagnant, in my opinion. So again, surrounding yourself with people who come from different cultural backgrounds, and it's deeper than just skin tone. If you're an AD from California, you might need to have somebody from Georgia on your staff, or Florida, just to give you a different perspective in how you're dealing with student athlete issues. Because again, I'm from South Georgia. The issues that I dealt with when it came to racial relations are going to be significantly different than somebody who grew up in California.
Thanks for that response, Duruante.
Absolutely, Chief.
Yeah, man, that's good insight. Epiphany, similar to the question I asked Haven earlier, according to the NCAA, in 2019, only 128 African-American women were represented in all development offices around college athletics. What is your message to young African-American women seeking opportunities within development in college athletics?
Thank you. And speaking of women, I want to give a shout out to Madison, who is also behind the scenes working and helping out with this team. So thank you all for the opportunity. It's a great question, and I've thought long and hard about how to approach it, because being a woman, a lot of times, and being a Black woman, and a lot of times, not only am I the only one in the room, but in multiple categories, I am the only one in the room. And so I guess I was raised to believe in myself and to have confidence in myself, to know that I belong and can be in any room that I want to be in. And so for those that are interested or those that are coming up, I say you have to own that. And so by owning that, it's asking questions, networking, reaching out, connecting, sending the ladder back down, even when you don't think you're qualified. It's getting out of your comfort zone. Yes, Jackie, it's not just asking other women, it's asking whoever's in that room, ask whoever is in that room how you can be a part of that room, what they did to get into that room and invited to that room. And then when you get in the room, go sit at the table. It's constantly making sure and sort of paving your own path. And it has to be that way, because a lot of the times it sort of feels like an afterthought as a woman. And we probably should also have, and so it's if you don't see yourself at the table, then ask why not. And if you don't see other people that look like you at the table, ask why not. And I say this all doing so respectfully, but for me, I got to where I am through a lot of white males, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, my mentor is on this call today, and so it's that continuous support, that continuous empowerment, but it's also taking the reins for yourself and going.
Thank you so much, Epiphany. Mike, you as young African-American males, and so many of us, our dreams are to play in the NBA, but you actually had the opportunity to work in the NBA. When you had that experience in the NBA, you saw many African-Americans in leadership roles. Once you arrived at UNC Charlotte, you were the only African-American in leadership for some time. What is your advice to others that are in similar situations like that? How did you overcome that?
It was definitely a big transition. I mean, going from the NBA where we had, Black president, Cat Scott, you had a Black CEO, Bob Johnson, you had a Black GM and Black coach and Bernie Bickerstaff. So it was, you saw a lot of people in leadership positions, and it felt good, to see those people in those positions. And it was definitely something that was inspirational. Once I got to Charlotte, it was definitely a lot different. Basically, I felt the pressure to come when I got to campus. It's definitely one of those things where I felt like I had to represent, I was in this position, and I needed to, do the best I could, but a lot of that was, self-applied, So my advice basically would be to let your work speak for itself. Let the work speak louder than what you're saying. So, and the people who are in leadership positions will know this. Definitely don't be afraid to speak up if you, if you're interested in pursuing a career in this further, and get to meet the people like Epiphany was talking about. Make sure that you are getting your foot in the door and talking to these people who can make those decisions and help you move forward in your career.
Starting back around for round 2 of questions. Back you, Haven. What is your advice for someone beginning a leadership position for the first time?
Yeah, I think that's obviously a really good question. Given the transition I made to this role, I would use the 6-letter word, listen. Listen closely. And the reason I say that is because we've all heard that old saying, the fact that we've been blessed with 2 ears and 1 mouth. Learn to listen twice as much as you talk. I heard from a coach, one of my position coaches at Auburn years ago. You got to spend time intentionally evaluating staff and getting to know people and gaining an understanding of skill sets early on, because if you're coming into a new role as a leader, in particular in this situation where I was meeting, a lot of new staff and things were happening at a rapid pace coming in right before the football season, it was really important for me to spend time to evaluate, to watch, build profiles. People and process are our business. That's what we do. That's who we are. Mm-hmm. And just knowing that the people, that being the staff, that being the student athletes, that being coaches, that being fans, that is the unique part of what we do. We work well with people. We build with people, and then the process of it, all the work behind the scenes, is so important for us to just have the collaborative approach at all times. Because I think when you're collaborative, obviously it brings fresh ideas, new thoughts, but there's always success if everybody's buying in. One of the other things I'll mention is don't ever ask people to do things that you're not willing to do. I think that is so important. I tell this story. I was at South Alabama, Alvin, and you know him very well. He's a mentor of mine, still the AD there, Dr. Joel Erdman. I'll never forget, here I am out at Ladd Peoples Stadium, which they don't have to, obviously don't have to compete at Ladd anymore. And I'm out putting up banners by myself, assistant AD for administration, because I had a couple students that had class. Joel Erdman walks out on the field, has to change his suit. He helps me for about 45 minutes. Me and the athletic director were putting up banners. Sunbelt Conference, we're putting up banners. He goes and takes a shower in the locker room, puts his suit back on because he has a meeting on campus. I think it may have been a board of trustee meeting or something of that sort, some kind of board meeting. Mm-hmm. In that moment, that taught me a lot about being a leader, a servant leader, and it's not you go, it's let's go together. So I would repeat that 1,000 times. Don't ask anybody to do something that you won't do. And the last thing I'll mention, is as a new leader, I think you're getting to know people and you've got to set expectations early. You never want to misguide people that you oversee in the sense of how you operate. There shouldn't be any misunderstandings in how you lead. You could be extremely compassionate and still hold people accountable. So I think that's important. So compassion and accountability, I think, go hand in hand in how you operate as a leader as well. So those are some things that I would really focus on early on, because again, if you're a new leader and you're working with new people, there's obviously some segments and some things that you're trying to develop.
Thank you so much, Haven. Keith, you had a very unique path to development. What was the most important thing that you learned about yourself along that journey?
And I'll go back to a point that Epiphany made, is that, I was very fortunate that my parents raised me to be comfortable in my skin wherever I am. And I think having had those experiences at Miami, which is a very diverse demographic, being at the University of Tennessee, which may not be as diverse as some places, and then moving to Wake Forest, which is less diverse than some places, back to, where I am now, which is where I started at an HBCU. I think the one thing that I learned the most is that, and we may not realize it as individuals, or you may, but we have the ability to adapt to whatever environment we're in. I think we've done that. I think our forefathers did that. Our grandparents did it. They had the ability to adapt to wherever we were. And I think Haven said in one of his comments, we've got to be comfortable being able to have a conversation at the country club. We've got to be able to walk out on the tarmac at an FBO and understand, number one, what an FBO is, and feel comfortable getting on somebody's private plane. But also we have to be able to feel comfortable walking through Hartsfield Jackson International in Atlanta, and waiting on Delta Airlines to take us to wherever so I think along my journey, I've been able to adapt to wherever I've been. And I think that's the most important thing, even moving forward as a leader. We have to understand that we're always adapting. And I say it again, AIO, adapt, improvise, and overcome. And that's, I think, what we do, not just as African-American leaders, but as leaders, period, is that we have to be able to adapt, improvise, and overcome.
Thank you, Keith. Next up for Al, can you explain how important preparation has been throughout your journey?
Yeah, I certainly can. Preparation has served me well throughout my career. I've been able to step into a number of roles and serve in different capacities at both the institutions I've worked at. And I've always benefited from successful transitions, and I credit that because of the preparation. And for me, my process is what's the role I want and what are the gaps that I currently have? So if I'm looking at opportunities that may be next for me, it's looking at those job descriptions, talking to the people that are in those roles and understanding what that role and what those responsibilities entail. And then what are the gaps that I have? And over that time that I'm working in my current position, trying to make sure that I'm doing a really good job at what I'm asked to do, because that's always the first thing to be successful, is do a great job in the role that you have, but also prepare for the next role that you want. So I'm looking at those job descriptions, getting the experience that I may not be required for in this role, but I'm trying to get it for the next role, and connecting with people that are in those capacities, talking to them. That helps me expand my network, my exposure, and then also just my technical functional skills. And that part you can always learn. I think, on the job, you can learn the technical functional piece, but there's some anecdotal information that you can gain from the people that are in those roles or that had that experience, and just being more aware always helped me. The one thing I'll say more important than all the other pieces is that being prepared allowed for me to walk into those roles with less fear, less anxiety, and, to approach it a little bit more confidently, and not allow that self-doubt to eat away at me, because that could be something that we certainly face as we transition into new roles with new responsibilities and amongst any type of change. So eliminating as much fear and anxiety that you can by preparing just allows for you to be more successful as you transition, and it served me well. I'll kind of share this. So Big Sean, he's a rapper, and I think he's one of the best philosophers in the rap game. But in one of his lyrics, he says, proper preparation prevents poor performance. And I try to really approach my day, my projects, and the things I have to do in that way, just being as prepared as possible so I can be as successful as possible.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Al. Duruante, obviously rejection is a thing for a lot of us. So how did you learn to overcome rejection early on in your career?
Honestly, man, I'll say, I think my, comfortability with rejection came early, before I even started in college athletics. Heck, before I started working full-time jobs in general, because you get to a point in life where you got two spoons of thought, right? You got the closed mouth, don't get fed, and you got the safe space. And, you can stay in the safe space and never hear no, and be okay with the answer that you're getting. But when you want to grow in an industry, or when you want to challenge yourself professionally, you have to get used to hurdles along the way. And to me, rejection is just another hurdle that you got to figure out your way through. And as Keith has told you, AIO, right? You got to adapt, improvise, and kind of keep going. It's one of those situations where, again, I used to work for a baseball team in professional athletics that had lost 100 games, 3 years consecutively. And I still had to convince myself, I got to go sell these season tickets because that's my job. And while I might make 100 calls a day to people who who don't care because you're not winning, and it's one of those situations, especially in professional sports, that fandom starts to die down real quick when you're no longer a winning program or a winning team. So you get used to getting hung up on. You get used to hearing no. So that transition to development became rather easy because I was so used to hearing no about people who weren't passionate about an organization or a team that when you come to development, you hearing no it's not even about you at that point. You just got to make sure that the story that you're telling matches the opportunity that exists. And if a no comes out of that, cool, you've done your part. But at the same token, you have to put yourself in a position to even be able to hear a no, to become comfortable with receiving rejection.
I definitely agree with that, Duruante. Thank you for that good answer. Epiphany, how do you handle uncomfortable comments while being on donor visits and also engaging with donors?
So I think first, I'm going to tell a quick story as to why this question occurs. So Mark and I were talking, and he kind of was, I don't even remember how the question came up, but I told him a story about how I was at a lunchtime meeting, one-on-one with a donor prospect, and my guy had the audacity to tell the server that he was on a blind date, to which I immediately said, no, actually, I'm a professional. My job is this, and I work for this institution, and I'm here because this person has an interest in supporting our students. And I think he was so caught off guard, he was kind of like, oh, I was kind of joking, like under his breath, but I made sure that it was very clear what my purpose was in that moment. And again, I think that goes back to, for me, I grew up with two brothers, so my dad and my brothers never played that. So it was an immediate reaction, but I think there is things like that happen all the time. When you talk about being Black in fundraising, I'll never forget the first time I went to travel and I was kind of like, I've never heard of that place. I have to Google it to make sure that I'm gonna come back home. I have to Google it to know, do I need to get gas now or do I not need to get gas? Do I share my PIN and location with somebody and so there's all these sorts of hurdles that you go through, even just entering into this industry that our colleagues don't have to worry about or be concerned about, or it's being a female, it's what do I wear, and is this too short, or is it my shoulders, heaven forbid my shoulders are out because it's 100 degrees in Michigan and no one was prepared for that. And so there's just a lot of different things kind of from that all go into that are my reality. But again, I think I was comfortable in that situation because I had already heard from another female colleague of, hey, you're new to this, and here's sometimes what happens, and it's not acceptable. It's not it's not okay. But the other thing is, I knew the organization that I worked for had my back, and so when I got back and I told that story, my boss was like, okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna reach back out to this guy. We're gonna see, if that's what he's about, then that's not somebody we want being a donor here. And so it's not that we're gonna just pass him off to the next person. It is, does he match our the character and the values with which we're trying to portray? Because no amount of money is worth that. And so we can all joke $1 billion, yeah, because that covers us for a lot of different things. But at the end of the day, if I don't feel supported, I'm out.
Thank you so much, Epiphany, for sharing that. Michael, great leadership. How has great leadership from African-American leaders impacted your career? And also, how did their leadership influence your growth as well?
Been very impactful. You know, I recently, you know, had an African American leader who was appointed to a position and as a SWAT at our university, and she has definitely been a huge help. Just taking an interest in me has motivated me, has given me extra motivation to continue to pursue my dreams and goals that I have. It's definitely, she's also, you know, challenged me, you know, to, you know, be a better leader, and giving me particular or new projects that's going to help me and help build my resume and help me, you know, sharpen up some leadership skills as well as teamwork skills. So those things definitely have helped me. And I, you know, before she got there, it definitely wasn't something that I was getting, but I'm truly appreciative of what the experience and the relationship that I have with her. So.
Thank you, Michael. Back to you, Haven. One of our focuses in this field is definitely the success of our student athletes. But how do we need to transition them from internships required by their courses into full-time development professionals?
So I've been waiting on this question, so thank you for getting to it out. You know, this is you start thinking about the future of college athletics. And you dial it back and you realize when you get into development, it's not a major. We just all kind of fall into it with opportunities that we've been given. But when you start thinking about the current student athlete population, we spend 5 years developing them with a holistic approach of saying, hey, you know, we want you to be a great we want you to be a great student. You're going to be a competitive athlete that we develop, and we'll also work towards developing you within our student development programming and as such. The internship piece is a small portion of it. The conversations need to start way before that. So I'm dialing this question back about moving them to internships. I mean, you know, them after internships, them having an opportunity for development positions. Most of the young men that I have the chance to interact with here at Ball State, and even during my times at South Alabama or Auburn, they're curious. They don't know. They've never really been exposed to this side of it. They see the operation. Are we doing a really good job early on as freshmen and sophomores, helping them understand the athletic enterprise? We put them in front of a lot of different people, business people, sharing stories about you know, their profession and, you know, being former student athletes and having a chance to transition out of it. Right here in our own backyard, we've got these 400, 500 plus student athletes, and a part of them have an interest in what we do. And we're talking about internships at the very end of their 4 years. It starts early on. We've got to educate them more on the different areas within athletics. I'll shout out to Pitt Athletics. I know they had a program called Pitt Script for Life, where they've taken interns and they're basically giving them a chance to just dial in for 8-10 weeks of a program where they're paying them and they're allowing them to go through it with real on-the-job training. This starts through their entire career. I think another thing that we got to be thoughtful of is when our current student athletes inquire about working in college athletics, we got to, as I said earlier, we got to expose them to the overall enterprise. Some things that I think need to happen. Again, I think the internships are important. But how do we partner? You start thinking about the number of folks with the amount of experience that we have. We know we had, you know, NACTA, NAT, you know, even MOA in some cases. We've got all these conventions and things that we attend, and there's a special programming as such within that. How do we take these interns and put them in a program? How do we create a network ourselves? And maybe that is a network because, again, we say we want more young people of color, that being men and women in this industry. So how do we create some kind of coalition or group to where we're having more dialogue about opportunities? It's not just about the internships. We need a group of advocates that are going to push these people to get opportunities, push these young people for opportunities, but it starts in our own backyard. How do we create real on-the-job training experience for them, and then be able to advocate for them when the time comes for a job with our own network. I don't know if we're always doing it or we're not doing it enough. So it has to be intentional. It's not that the internship doesn't matter, but I just think it starts way before that. It starts day one of educating them on what we are, who we are, and what we do, so that they gain understanding of what it is that they may want to get involved in when in college athletics. If we're really serious about developing these young people of color in these roles, then we've got to recruit them the same way we did when we told them, hey, we want you to be a part of our university. We want you to do all these things that we're asking you to do as a student athlete. Forgive me, I'm getting passionate about this one because this is a serious question you're asking. And I think there's a lot of depth to it, but it starts early on. So we've got to be really intentional about it. And again, how do we use the platforms such as an actor or NAD to create things for interns that have come to universities and said, come to their leadership and said, hey, I really want to get into college athletics? Or how do we as an institution, leaders across the country in development, create something where we're assisting each other and sharing that we have students that really want to get involved in that profession, and then also sharing ways to advocate for them to get jobs. Because at the end of the day, that's the only way we grow this enterprise. We've got to be able to advocate for them, and we've all got to be able to have, again, these uncomfortable conversations and share the numbers, and we've got to be thoughtful in the fact that if we want more of them in this profession, we've got to be willing to hire more. It can't be about because I'm in the Midwest, or I'm in a certain area where we may not have as many on staff. We need to get more serious. We need to be more intentional. So again, we need to create some avenues to allow that to happen, but it starts on your campus.
Thank you so much, Haven. Keith, how important is your personal network in this industry, and what advice do you have for others?
That's a great question, Mark. I think we talked about this for like 40 minutes. And I'll give a little bit of a backstory. So most recently, during my time when I was at Florida Atlantic University, new athletic director came in and kind of retooled the staff. And so I kind of, for the first time in my career, I found myself in a position where I did not have a position. I knew the position was going to end. He was transitioning new staff in. And so having been in this business for quite a while, I felt like, hey, you know what? It's fine. 2 months from now, 60 days, by the time I move back to Tennessee, I'll have another gig. And what I learned in this process from June until probably October was that I thought that my network throughout the years was pretty solid. But I learned quickly during that process is that I knew a lot of people, but I didn't know the right people. And so what I would say for people, for anyone in this business is don't just go to NAD and grab a business card from somebody and you say, oh yeah, Haven's in my network. Have genuine relationships with people, get to know them, get to understand what they do, how they got to where they are, and then how do they see themselves helping you? How can that relationship be mutually beneficial? I, like a lot of people in development, early on in my career, I developed a really, really good relationship with Bobby Purcell at NC State. And everybody in development knows Bobby Purcell. He's the godfather. But when I was working at North Carolina A&T, Bobby took an interest in me and said, hey, I want you to come to Raleigh once a month and shadow me and spend a day and learn what it's like to be a development officer and how we run our meetings and how we have conversations with donors. So I would drive from Greensboro once a month, go spend a day with Bobby, go with him on calls, listen to him, talk to people. And that helped me when I got my first development job at Miami, was that I had learned from the best. And so as I continued to move throughout my career, yes, I got to know other people, but I would say from day one up until last summer, that one constant person was Bobby Purcell. And so I believe if I had gotten more of the right people, that process of re-entering the game may not have been as difficult as it was. But again, my advice would be make sure you're getting to know the right people who are in positions that can help you, but who can also help groom you and put you in front of the right people.
Answer, Keith. Al, in what ways have you demonstrated the commitment to developing young Black leaders?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's a more introspective question because, you know, I would say I haven't done enough and I'll never feel like I've done enough. So I always want to continue to do more. But, you know, Haven and Keith have used two words that I think are important to me, and it's genuine and intentional. I've always made myself available, and I never profess to have all the answers or know everything there is to know. You know, when the conversations that I have with young leaders, it's chew the meat and spit the bones. You know, there will be some things that are substantive, and there's other things that won't be necessary for the conversation. But I've always been available. I try to be intentional to share the things that I've experienced, the things that I would suggest from a professional standpoint, and ways to navigate this industry that I found to be successful for me. But the main thing is just being present. And, you know, there's not a lot of us, and there's a fear when you're entering this industry that there's no space for you. And I try to encourage anyone that I talk to that actually there's a demand for you. There's a true demand because we are limited. And the more successful you are, the more calls you'll get, the more opportunities you'll have. So own that, like Epiphany was saying, own that. This is a time for us to continue to take charge in this industry, because we represent the people that are, you know, the industry from college athletics is represented by college student athletes that look like us. So why not be the ones that are out telling their story? And I'm going to continue to promote, encourage, and empower the people that I connect with. I also want to be intentional about the programs that I'm a part of. Here locally, I try to invest myself in the community around mentorship opportunities and engaging with organizations that invest time in the communities that I grew up in and that I feel most comfortable in. And that's kind of hard to do in Austin. I won't deny that, but there's pockets where you can find it. So those are the two things that I would say: just being available, pushing the envelope here in Texas athletics or wherever I'm at. What are we doing, like Haven was saying? What are we doing to introduce development to our student athletes? What are we doing to introduce the opportunities in athletics to our student athletes, so they know, like, you don't have to go far to find a home once you graduate. Like Texas or wherever you are is always going to be your home. Let's find a place for you to develop here.
Thanks, Al. Duruante, what is your message to someone who feels like development may not be for them because they feel like the odds aren't in their favor?
Well, that's a good one, Mark. And I would definitely assume that, you know, if you feel as though that is not the case, you probably weren't an athlete. So you need to, one, get over that hurdle. Because again, you know, as a basketball player, odds aren't in your favor. If you shoot under 50% from 3-point line, hey, people consider you a good shooter at 45. So shoot your shots and be comfortable being uncomfortable. Because a lot of times, especially as a African-American in this industry, you're going to be the minority in the group. You're going to be asking people who don't look like you and don't come from similar backgrounds for significant amounts of money to support your program. And while, again, you can take it personally, or you can realize that I'm an extension of my student athletes. So at the end of the day, if you made it in the industry, great. The odds were not in your favor, and now you have to be comfortable. Continue pushing that envelope so you continue making that climb so you can reach back down and grab somebody else. Because Mark even showed you, I think, when he started this, the numbers aren't in our favor. But I think, again, I think Al said this, Keith said this as well. Being intentional about the relationships you have are going to have your name mentioned in rooms that you're not in. And that is, especially getting in this industry, that's how you're going to get that first job, that next job, and continue being able to grow and be able to, again, reach back out and help somebody else in that same situation.
Thank you for that, Duruante. Epiphany, what's the most important principle that guides your life, and how do you use that principle to make an impact with your donors and colleagues?
Haven, I'm just as shook as you are by that question. I think for me, there's two. There's two sort of phrases, and the first one that I use is give grace. Give grace no matter what. And so that for me is meeting people where they are. That doesn't mean that I sacrifice who I am for the sake of others by giving grace. But it just means that I'm going to give you grace and assume that I don't know your whole story. And so I'm not going to assume what that story is. The second thing is, and okay. So it's a phrase. And that to me, I just picture me going to my dad and saying, you know, my brother just did X, Y, and Z. And my dad saying, and okay, or okay, and what he was doing was like pushing me to figure it out, right? Like he can easily come in and step in and solve that problem, but it taught me to sort of stand up for myself and to also realize that yes, life happens and some things, it's not an excuse, it's a reality, but what's the next step? How can I keep moving forward and not be set back by things? And so for me, it's really giving grace and meeting people where they are, and then the okay and really moving forward in that aspect.
Awesome. Thank you, Epiphany. Mike, how important is mentorship in this industry? Why is it important for leaders like this panel to be vocal and make an impact on others in college athletics?
Mentorship is vitally important. I mean, just look at, you know, if you look at, you know, if you look on social media just recently, you know, everybody knows about, you know, Chadwick Boseman and, you know, who was in Black Panther and the story with him and Denzel Washington. I mean, if you don't have Denzel Washington, you know, making, you know, paying for him to get that type of education at Oxford, you know, we don't have a Black Panther. We don't have you know, these type of experiences, you know. So one of those things that I would say is, you know, none of us are, you know, here by ourselves. I mean, I would say on this panel that none of us have made it here to where we are on our own. You know, it's definitely one of those things that we all have to, like, you know, make a self-evaluation and understand that we're standing on the shoulders of some other people who seen something special in us and taking an interest in us and saw fit to help us when we needed help. And so it's important to be vocal. I think just because if we're not vocal, then who else will be? We have to be the influencers in those meetings. If we see someone who is definitely qualified to, you know, to be in that position, you know, speak up. If you know, find out, if you know that person, you know, through and through, definitely speak up, you know, and make sure that your voice is heard to help, you know, bring someone up through the ranks as well.
Thank you, Michael. So in closing, we have our closing remarks. We've asked everybody on our panel to just share words of wisdom, add something else to their comments or anything. So leading off, this will be Michael.
Well, I definitely I appreciate appreciate everyone's time. Definitely want to thank the panel for letting me join them. Learned a lot tonight, and I would say, as far as advice, I would definitely say just be intentional, like everyone was saying earlier, with every interaction that you have, whether that's with a supervisor or an administrator that you are wanting to find more information about what they do and everything, or if it's with an intern that you see is just busting his tail, and you see that there's definitely a passion to pursue another job in athletics. So I would say definitely just be intentional and also just be prepared. You know, like we were saying earlier, preparation is a huge thing. You know, when you're in these new spaces, you definitely need to make sure that you're buttoned up and ready to go when your number's called. You know, and so those would be two quick things that I would say.
Thanks, Michael. Epiphany?
Yeah, thank you so much for having. I believe in giving people their roses while they're here. So thank you so much to Mark, Madison, and Alvin for hosting this. Thank you to my esteemed panelists for allowing me to join y'all tonight. Shout out to all my Big Ten colleagues I see on this call, Kara Squared, and then my mentor. I want to highlight Patrick Gray. Get after it. Don't let other people dictate your journey and your path. This is college athletics. And so in the spirit of competition, I just challenge everyone to compete with themselves every day and be better than you were yesterday. So thank you again for all your time.
Thanks, Epiphany. Duruante?
Again, echoing everyone's sentiments, thank you for everybody who joined in with us here to have these difficult conversations. And Mark and Al, thank you guys, and Madison, excuse me, don't leave you out. Thank you guys for putting this on. But, you know, I'd like to leave the people with a couple thoughts. Again, following on Michael, be intentional, whether it's about relationships with your staff, donors, or even your colleagues. Be intentional. Learn what they're going through, learn the struggles that they have. So again, you can address those and help your friend out when they're weak. And be intentional about being a mentor to those groups behind you. I think me and Mark have a very organic relationship that started at NACDA that continued to blossom to the point we're at now. And it gets to a point where, again, you have to be intentional about that. I'll also tell you, attack each day for the position that you want to have in life. If you're serving as a development assistant right now, but you want to be AD, come up to work every day like you want to be an AD. Dress for the part that you want. Speak for the part that you want. And be intentional about your actions in putting yourself in a position to get there. The more intentional you are about that, the more people who recognize you and the further you'll go in this career. So, and to kind of, my last point would be your 7 Ps. We've all said it. Proper preparation prevents piss poor performance. And if you prepare for, again, the job you want, you prepare for each day, you should take no L's in that standpoint. So be committed to what it is that you want to do and attack each day like the job you want.
Thanks, Duruante. Al?
Yeah, I mean, can't say it enough. Thank you all for allowing for us to share in this conversation. Mark, Alvin, Madison, we really appreciate you all leading the discussion. I would say that, at a time that we're in right now where COVID or the pandemic has limited opportunities in competition or eliminated opportunities in competition for some, where it has reduced budgets and potentially staff. With the people that are on your staff today, like, who can you support their breakthrough? Like, who can you provide an opportunity because of the gaps that are available to allow for them to step into a role or step into a responsibility that's going to help them break through and continue to advance in this industry, because those opportunities will be present. There's experience that they may not have, but they can get. There's exposure that they may not have that you can provide. So I challenge everyone on this call to seek those opportunities in your department, so that we can continue to allow for more breakthroughs to happen each day, each week, each month, and each year. So we can continue to be a part of the progress.
Thanks, Al. Keith?
Yeah, and I think I apologize. I do appreciate this opportunity. I don't think I officially said thank you for allowing me to be a part of this, but I appreciate the opportunity to share the stage with these impressive individuals in our industry. What we do is not easy. It's not easy, when you're not African-American in development. But for us to have experienced some level of success, I think it ties back to, number one, us being comfortable with who we are and being comfortable in our skin. But number two, being passionate about what we do. So that's one thing I would say to people who are looking to be in this business, regardless of what you look like, is that people can tell when you're not passionate. And so things were easy for me at Wake Forest because although I did not graduate from Wake Forest University, I would often tell people, you know, I'm just as passionate about Wake as you are. And so you'll never see, you know, anything other than that. So I would say be passionate about where you are, but also remember, you know, what your grandparents said, we still have to be twice as good to get half the credit. So keep that in mind when you're out, when you're prospecting. So when you get that no, what's a no? It doesn't matter. You know, I mean, you know, shoot your shot. Like Duruante said, you got to shoot your shot. You're going to miss every one you don't take. And so hearing no is not a problem. That just means, you know, all of us, we've done prospecting. I need to get through these no's so I can get to these yeses. And so you've got to go through the no's, understand that, just decide to be great. Let your passion lead you. And you know, always understand what your why is and what your North Star is. And I think if you do that, those who are aspiring in this business will be fine. And those of us who are in this business, wherever you are, whether it's Power 5, Group of 5, FBS, FC, wherever you are, people will be able to feel your impact. And I made a comment the other day that I'm probably the happiest that I've been in a long time. And I never thought that I would be saying that about going back to an HBCU, but it's my roots, is where I come from. And I've done the bowl trips, I've done, you know, all, but I feel as though for us and for me, it's about impact. And I feel like we're having a tremendous impact here. And you guys come check out the new FAMU. We're going to get it done.
Thanks, Keith. Haven?
By the way, Keith, you shared that comment with me, so I'm excited that you're happy in the most you've ever been. Again, just to Madison, you know, Mark, and along with Alvin, I can't thank you guys enough, you know, for moderating, and again, Mark, for your vision. This has been outstanding. You know, these kinds of conversations, you realize how talented we are, you know, within this industry. And I hope that, you know, others that can hear this call understands that, hey, we want you to be a part of it too. And obviously want to be as much of a mentor, as much of a resource as we can be. A couple of things I want to just touch on before we get off, you know, before we finish up the call. You know, tensions have been extremely high within our country. I know that, you know, a lot of institutions, I think it was mentioned earlier, maybe Duruante mentioned, a lot of people are, you know, putting roles in place on campus to really attack diversity and inclusion. And, you know, I hear people often talk about this being a movement. I think we need to stop referring to it that way and just say we need to focus on the consistency of it. You know, daily change is all that will ever matter. You know, how we're having conversations with each other, white, black, brown, you know, no matter what the color is, are we having intentional conversations that are going to unify us as a country, as a people? I think is extremely important right now on every level. So please, you know, all on the call, just continue to have honest, open conversations and be intentional, as that word has been used a ton. I think right now, because of because of the way things are within our country, because of the, you know, people being angry and, you know, lost and confused, in particular our student athletes, let's just continue to provide great energy for them, you know, as well as members of our team, our colleagues. Spend time with them, getting to know them personally. I think this is a time that offers us to be able to do that. I think it's probably more important now than ever. You know, and then also just make sure you continue to focus on you, personal time, you know, getting the regular routines. Nothing like family, you know, family time. I think right now it's taught us that we all have been, if you've been like me with a 1- and 3-year-old at home for the last 5 months, you were excited to get back in your office when you did. But I mean, just family time is obviously extremely important. So continue to focus on that. You know, I shared an article with Mark, you know, 4 ways to improve strategic thinking skills. I think our departments right now require us all to be strategists, you know, to go deeper, next level, just because we're all trying to potentially do more or less with all the potential financial cuts that we could end up having. So I asked them to provide, I thought it was a great article, you know, maybe set up think tank sessions for yourself to really sit and think personally, professionally. It probably could take you places you never thought it could, just to sit and think, to spend time, almost like a meditation. And then obviously the last thing I'll say, just because of where we are, everybody just stay healthy and safe. You know, keep an eye on your mental focus, your mental well-being. I think that right now more than ever is extremely important for where we are as a country. So again, thank everyone for the time.
Alvin?
Well, first and foremost, I would like to go back in and thank the panelists again for joining us and sharing with us today in this enlightening conversation. And also thanks to all the people who joined in to listen to our six panelists. I want to kind of piggyback a little bit what Al said. Al used the two words genuine and intentional as two words that stood out. And I would like to say that, this is a group of people. These six panelists are six genuine people in this business, people that people need to get to know. They're all intentional about their growth and the growth of others. So I want to definitely applaud all of you guys, all six panelists, guy and lady, for your insight tonight. This is a difficult time to be a Black fundraiser. I think, with the civil unrest, one of our colleagues said the other night, I know me and Haven were on a text, we were talking, one of our colleagues said, civil unrest, no football at a lot of institutions, and also we're also in one of the biggest elections probably in American history. This is a difficult time for us. So I think it's important for us to engage in these types of conversations and to engage in this dialogue. We mentioned earlier, a common theme early on in the conversation were the numbers and the lack thereof, especially what Haven said, the lack of leadership, the lack of minorities in leadership positions in both leading shops and getting to the AD chair. And you also said, Haven, we got work to do. And I think that also starts, and the reason that those numbers are so low is because minorities are not afforded the same opportunities in the entry-level positions. And so if we're not getting those entry-level positions, how can we embrace the journey to matriculate up the ladder? And so, we do have work to do. And, I've enjoyed getting to know Mark over the last couple of months. And, when I first met Mark, he had a vision to do this. And I told him, man, whatever you needed me to do, I would do. And I think he's branded this with the right name, Breaking Through. I really didn't sit and think about it at first when he first told me Breaking Through. I was, okay, it's a name, slap it on the flyer, it looks good. But I think when it relates to minorities in this business, breaking through, I think we've always been in the neighborhood. But all of a sudden now we're knocking on the door, and eventually that door is going to fully open. And so I just want to say thank you to everybody once again, and I'll shoot over to you, Mark.
Thank you so much, Alvin. Thank you to our panel. I'm truly blessed and honored to not only call you guys a colleague, but a friend. Thank you for your education tonight. I think that's always important that, through tough times and through challenges that we are able to bring forth pieces of education for people to grow. Special shout out to Madison. Madison is probably my best friend now. She's done all of the marketing and everything. So super big shout out to Madison. Thank you to our guests. Thank you for joining. If you guys want to check this out, we'll have it on our YouTube page, Breaking Through in Development. Please subscribe. We look forward to many more this fall. Thank you so much, everybody. Y'all have a good night. Thank you again.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.